So, a really simple way to look at this is to look at it as a toxic overload. So, it's just too much. When you think of the two different types of diabetes, type 1 is too little. You don't have enough. Enough what? Well, you don't have enough insulin, first of all. And then because you don't have enough insulin, you can't get enough sugar into your cells, and you can't get enough amino acids into your cells. So your cells are starving. It's a lack, it's not enough. And so people with type 1 diabetes will shrink down and shrink down, and they will become emaciated no matter how much they eat, because they cannot get the glucose into their cells.
Oh, it's working. Yay. Welcome to the Blood Sugar webinar, you guys. We're excited to have you here. I'm going to put this live on Facebook. So those of you watching there, hello, welcome. YouTubers, we are delighted that you are watching. So this is really fun. Those of you who are on Zoom get the opportunity to post your questions here in the Q&A. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you can post your questions as well. We'll do our best to get to those when we can. Sometimes we get to them when we're live, but for some reason, there is just not enough time to get to all of these questions. So if you have questions for Dr. Saunders, put them in the Q&A as fast as you can. That's what I would say. I always have people that are like, why are you ignoring my questions? And I'm like, I promise you, I'm not ignoring your questions. There are so many that come through, which is very fun.
Just be the first one to enter a question in, and then it'll be more likely to get answered.
Yes, exactly. And we love this because we get to learn from Dr. Saunders and then open it up for your questions, because you guys are going through this, right? You're going through, many of you are going through the Diabetes Solution Kit, the book that we talk about often. You're doing the hard work and you have some questions, and we want to hear those questions. We want to hear also what's working for you, what isn't working for you, what questions do you have that come up. So not only do we want to help you through this process, we want to see you succeed. That's our goal. We're not doing our job if you aren't having success, right? And we know that you guys, by you guys sharing your success with others, we can make a big dent on this type 2 population, right? Or these pre-diabetes diagnoses that are happening. And so we want to help you guys. Okay, so post your questions in the Q&A. Best place for me to manage those. All right. Let me see here. Yes, looks like we've got a lot of you on already. Getting, I think we have 86 so far, so that's pretty awesome. Today we are going to talk about type 2. We're going to talk about what that means, what the diagnosis means, what do we do about it, and take your questions. So let's see who's on here today. Got a lot of people already chiming in. Awesome. Ryan is here from Valley Springs.
Can I answer a question from Michelle? Because I think this is really important.
Of course.
How do you get the resolve and willpower? You're in this environment and you have people eating things that you can't eat. And where does it come from that you say, gosh, that burrito really looks good? or can I just have some French fries? I love French fries. And the answer is it's practice. You practice and practice, and over a long period of time with practicing, you get better at it. And that's why, like, if you go to anything like, I don't know, an addiction kind of thing, and they say, well, every time you fall, you just get back up. It's a similar kind of thing where you practice, and you know what? Sometimes you fall down. Yesterday was my son's 17th birthday, my youngest son. So we decided we were going to go out to dinner early, but it didn't work out to go to the restaurant we wanted. So then we went to another restaurant, and then that didn't work out. So we went to the grocery store, and that didn't work out. So we ended up at a taco place. And so, I got a bean and cheese burrito at 7:30 at night, and I don't usually eat after 6. Um, it's just, that's the way it worked out. And this morning I'm going, dang, I shouldn't have got that burrito. So I learned something, and next time I probably won't do that. Um, I- and the other day I was out with friends, and they had French fries, and I ate a couple of French fries. And I normally don't eat that. I don't eat fried foods, but I had a couple of French fries. So don't kill yourself over doing something wrong, and just make a consistent effort, and over time your effort will pay off. And that's really where what it comes down to. No matter what you're trying to do, is over time your effort pays off. People who start businesses, often it's the fourth or fifth try when they finally get it right. That's like, yeah, I tried that and that failed, and tried that and that failed, and I tried this and that failed, and then this one is now finally working for me. And so as you're going through this, it's a process, not an event, and that's why we're here to help. We're here to help you, give you information, but I can't give you willpower. And if you're gonna eat something that's not on your list, then you're gonna do that one day, and you're gonna go, darn, I wish I hadn't done that. Okay, I'm gonna go back. I'm not gonna do that next time. And then over time you learn. That's how you do it.
Awesome. It's great advice. And you will find too, just maybe to give you some hope as you're going through this process, because the Diabetes Solution Kit has 3 phases that we talk about. Many who are on this webinar right now, I mean, there's over 100 people on this, and I can see several of you that I know, and I know your stories. You've gone through this. You have been super strict in your phase 1, strict in your phase 2. You got to phase 3, which is now this is forever. And you have found, okay, well, I went to my grandson's birthday party and I had a piece of cake. And guess what? 1, either it didn't do anything to your numbers, or 2, it did. And you went back to 1 until phase 1 until your numbers were good again. And so you've learned how your body responds. You know what to do. And that's the beauty of the program. It teaches you how your body works and what you can tolerate and what you can't tolerate. And so I love hearing these stories from so many of you. We had someone on a while ago, we talk about this often, who found out by the time he got to phase 3, he could drink half a cup of juice, but he could not have sugar-free gum. Blood sugars would go crazy when he would have sugar-free gum. And so it's kind of this fun journey. I love what you said, Dr. Saunders. The process is a journey, not an event. But the fun part about it is that you get to learn about yourself through this as well. You get to see the way that your body was created, what you can tolerate, what works well for you, what gives you energy, what makes you feel good, and so that you can live the life that you want to live. And we talk about that a lot, figuring out what your why is. Why are you doing that? And if you want guys to share that in the chat, I think that's motivating for other people to see, for them to know why you are doing this, why you want something different, why you want to use the Diabetes Solution Kit, why you want to reverse your type 2. So let us know that in the chat. That also helps us kind of know where you guys are at. And sometimes we like to share that with the people on our team that are working so hard to bring this information to you. So, all right. We got lots of people chiming in already here. So ice cream. Roy says ice cream, my arch nemesis. That's a lot of people. I love this. Draw your sword and stand firm, Roy says. That's good. What else here? I'm 49 hours into my 5th. Rayanne, oh my goodness. 49 hours into my 5th 72-hour fast. My blood sugar is at 101.
Wow. Good work, Rayanne. That's awesome. At 49 hours. Okay, so you haven't eaten for 2 days and your blood sugar's 101? Dang. That's still a little high. Okay. Well, I mean it's a good number, but for a fasting number, ideally it would be like between 70 and 90. So keep going.
Yep.
Hang in there.
Super resistant, she said. So she's in that process of getting this all figured out. Raylene said, last night I had a loaded baked potato, salmon, a salad, and ice cream. My numbers this morning was 99. So what should I not eat from this meal? Well, first of all, wow, your numbers were only 99. That's pretty impressive, honestly.
Oh yeah, that is pretty impressive. Wait. Last night you're in the 49 hours?
No, this is a different person.
Oh, that's Raylene Turner. Okay. That's like, okay. So what? So you may not have a lot of insulin resistance then. If your insulin went up and brought your blood sugar down to normal, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So what
So
should you not eat? Okay, what you should not eat, I guess just like ice cream's not not good for you
well,
generally.
it depends on where you're at in your journey too. If you were to follow the diabetes solution kit and you're in phase one, you're eating 20 net grams of carbs or less. I mean, how many carbs are in a baked potato?
Yeah, right. A lot. So
So
yeah, the salmon and the salad would be okay. The other two are out.
yeah, and it also depends what you're using for a dressing on your salad, all of those little things. But honestly, yeah, your numbers are much lower than most people's would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, how big was the loaded baked potato? Juliana
Yeah.
said. That's true. That's a big part of it too.
Yeah.
Oh, these are fun. Good. This is good discussion, guys. What I want to do today is because I know that we have a lot of people on here, though. I want to quick go over what type 2 is exactly, and what I do this with Dr. Saunders all the time. I say, let's say someone just went to the doctor, found out that they had high blood sugars. The doctor said you have type 2 diabetes, and they're like, okay, and they said here's your medicine, and they went home, and maybe they still don't really understand what's happening in their body, because this is the story that I get from many of you who write in. Tell us what's happening in our bodies when we are diagnosed with type 2.
Okay. So a really simple way to look at this is to look at it as a toxic overload. So it's just too much. When you think of the two different types of diabetes, type 1 is too little. You don't have enough. Enough what? Well, you don't have enough insulin, first of all. And then because you don't have enough insulin, you can't get enough sugar into your cells, and you can't get enough amino acids into your cells. So your cells are starving. It's a lack, it's not enough. And so people with type 1 diabetes will shrink down and shrink down, and they will become emaciated no matter how much they eat, because they cannot get the glucose into their cells, and then their blood sugar goes up really high, but the underlying problem is not enough. Whereas type 2 diabetes is exactly the opposite. And that's why it's really unfortunate that we use the same name, diabetes, for two opposite illnesses. One is not enough, the other, type 2, is too much. So when a doctor says you have type 2 diabetes, what they're saying is you have too much. Too much what? Well, too much insulin, too much carbohydrates, too much fats, too much proteins. Remember, all of the insulin actually puts amino acids into your cells too. And that can cause you to get insulin resistant just from having excessive amino acids. So it's not as simple of I just ate too much sugar. It's not just too much sugar. A fat causes you to be insulin resistant for about 8 hours after you eat something with fat. So that baked potato that Raylene ate, that's loaded. What is it loaded with? Well, probably, I don't know, sour cream and butter, right? Or butter, or some kind of fat on there, along with whatever else, cheese, and right. So the baked potato with all that fat on it, the fat is going to make you insulin resistant, and the carb, for about 8 hours, and then the carb in the potato itself is going to raise your blood sugar. So now you have this raised blood sugar. Your insulin goes up, but it can't do anything because of all the fat that you ate with it. So that's part of the issue. So it's not just that you eat a lot of sugar. People come to us and they say, "But I don't eat sugar." Yeah, I have some, carbs. I have some pasta once in a while and breads and cereals. But I cut out all the sugar. I don't eat any sugar. Well, guess what? It's still too much of all of those. So it's too much of the energy sources, including carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So, what do you do about that? Well, one way to do it is to continue putting in too much and try and block it somehow. So, there are all kinds of blockers of trying to make more insulin so that you can bring more of you're eating too much, right? So bring more of it into your cells so that your blood sugar comes down to normal. Well, that is actually making you worse while it makes the numbers look better. So not a good idea. So that's the issue here with when you're told you have diabetes and you're being given a medication. Almost all the medications, metformin being an exception, cause you to become more insulin resistant, including the big one now Mounjaro or Ozempic, the injections, the peptides. These peptides are not your friend. Everybody says, oh, they're great, they're wonderful, they cause gastroparesis and you don't eat as much. And I'm like, okay, yeah, gastroparesis means paralysis of the stomach. So you now have paralysis of the stomach, you fill up your stomach but it can't empty. So it just sits, the food just sits in the stomach for very long periods of time. Some people get permanent gastroparesis from it. I have a case of that right now that we're dealing with. But the other thing is it causes more insulin to be produced. So when it causes more insulin, guess what? You get more insulin resistance. And so it's not a good idea. It's not a long-term solution. It's a short-term solution for a long-term problem. Because as you have more insulin resistance, you make more insulin. If you make more insulin, it tells your body to make more fat. If you make more fat, you're going to become more insulin resistant. And then the cycle goes around and around. So what happens if you lose weight on Ozempic? Well, what happens is because you have gastroparesis, the stomach is sitting there full, but it doesn't empty out. Then you're full for a long time and you eat less. That's the whole thing. You eat less. That's all it is. You're just eating less. So you lose weight. And there's nothing magical about Ozempic. You just eat less because your stomach sits full and you're not hungry. Why? Because you don't make a hunger hormone called ghrelin. Well, what happens if you don't make a hunger hormone called ghrelin? Well, then you don't make your growth hormone and you don't repair your body. So you break down your body. You're in catabolic mode, catabolic metabolism all the time, breaking down all of your cells. You don't go into anabolic metabolism because you don't have the growth hormone. And so what ends up is you're breaking down your body, you're causing insulin to increase, insulin resistance. And so as soon as you stop taking Ozempic, what happens? You're miserable, you gain weight, you gain it all back plus more. You're now insulin resistant, you have diabetes. Okay, so that's the scenario. Does it always happen? No, I had a patient who lost 10 pounds on Ozempic and she kept it off when she stopped taking Ozempic. Okay, so I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm saying it's not a solution. The solution is to detox. And that's what we have. The Diabetes Solution Kit gives you one method. It's not the only way. It is one way of detoxing by taking out just one of those three things that you've overdosed on. Taking out all the carbs. So if you remove all the carbs and you're not getting enough carbs to burn every day, then it forces your body to burn fat. And fat doesn't cause, it does cause you insulin resistance. But if you're not eating carbs, then the sugar doesn't go up and the insulin doesn't go up. That's really how it works. So that's the way we've chosen to write this program, because it's something that people can do. It works really well for most people. There are some people who just don't tolerate the fat. I've had cases of people who have had to go on a fat-free diet and their insulin goes down and their sugar goes down and they feel a lot better. So there are other ways to do it, but this is the way we've chosen to do it. So you can take out any one of, well, you don't want to take out proteins. You want to get enough protein, but you can take out either fat or carbs, and it could improve your insulin resistance. And so you get insulin sensitivity back. and then things start working correctly, which the medications don't do. They don't offer you that. So that's why we have the program. Now, people think that they're going to take a pill. We had a series of questions come from Amazon that they want to be able to answer on their when they sell Synachroma. And so under Synachroma, they say, okay, how long does it take to work? Well, how do we know it's working? And so they're asking these questions. Do you feel it working? And I'm like, no, that's not what it is. It is a supplement to make sure you can use sugar efficiently, so that when you do the diabetes solution kit, when you're actually on phase 1 of the program and doing a 20-gram carbohydrate diet, that you're going to be able to use fat properly and use sugar properly and get your insulin resistance down. So it's a help. It's not the whole reason. People think I'm going to pop a pill and then I can keep eating whatever I want. Well, nah, that doesn't work.
Yeah. So Steve had sent in a question. It says, I reacted to insulin. What next? I don't know if we have enough information to answer that, but why are many people put on insulin when typically their insulin maybe is already high?
Okay, that is because they use the same name. You have two opposite illnesses, and I explained why that is. But because they use the same name, that every doctor thinks, oh, diabetes, insulin. They automatically connect diabetes to insulin. They don't think about that the diabetes type 1 is a lack of insulin, and everybody needs insulin injections if you don't have enough, right? They just assume, oh, diabetes. So we give insulin injections. That's what we do. Your blood sugar's high, give an insulin injection because it lowers blood sugar. And they don't even know how it lowers blood sugar. They just that's what we do. So it's the cause of that, the reason why, that's your question, why do doctors give you insulin if you have too much? It's because they have the same name, diabetes.
So if Steve said that he reacted to insulin and he wants to know what to do next, what do we tell him?
The next thing to do is to do a test. Do 4 tests. Do your glucose, your hemoglobin A1C, an insulin level, and a C-peptide. And if your insulin and C-peptide are 0 or close to 0, then your pancreas is not functioning. And then you have to do antibody tests to find out why you reacted to insulin, because you might have autoimmune disease against insulin. And so start looking for the underlying cause of why that's happening.
Rand said that her doctor told her that he was purposely increasing her insulin level to force it into the cell, which was making me more insulin resistant.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's see here. I wanted to read this that came in. Okay, so this is from Rosalind. I found the kit help me to understand what I should be eating. Because of me being a cook, I learned to fix meals that worked with me. The intermittent fasting helped a tremendous amount. I just had labs done Friday and my glucose was 6.9. It has never been there before in over 10 years. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for being instrumental in helping me and others to get where we are going. And then she said, I came from being at an 11.0 and dropped down to 6.9 so far.
Wow. Okay, so that's the Canadian numbers. Just to put it into perspective for other people, 6.9 is around 110, 115. So that's in a really good range, under 120. And so if it's never been there, and if she was way up in the 11s, that means her average blood sugar was over 200, was in the 250s. That's pretty high. So coming down to 6.9, that's great. That's a really good number.
Let me see here. Okay, next question. Paul said, when I went to bed, my blood sugar was 103. When I got up, it was 102. Then without eating anything, I went to pay a parking ticket. And when I got back an hour and a half later, it was 114. I think he was stressed. I think stress did it. Why can that be?
I agree.
And we
Okay.
get this question a
So,
lot.
so what happens is you don't have to have anything in the stomach to make blood sugar. Your body, this is a really complex system. Your body makes glucose. It makes glucose out of protein. It can actually literally take protein out of your body and make that into glucose. It's called gluconeogenesis. Glucose, sugar, new genesis, to create. So it's creating new blood sugar out of the proteins in your body. Not you don't have to eat anything to raise your blood sugar. But interesting how you could be stressed going and paying a parking ticket and have the blood sugar go up because your liver's putting out sugar, and then the stress makes you insulin resistant, and so it goes up higher than otherwise it would be. So it sounds like your baseline is somewhere around 100, a little over 100. And ideally, you want that baseline to get down even more into the 70 to 90 range, or if you're in Canada, between 4 and 5 range.
Right. Hey guys, if we haven't done this in a couple of weeks, I don't think, but if you would like to come on camera with us, we'd love to have you. If you're on Zoom, go ahead and click that raise hand button, and then I'll enable you to be a panelist, and then you can turn your camera on. It's kind of fun to see all of you since we're going through these questions. So again, just hit that raise hand button if you are on Zoom. Okay, more questions. Robert, how are you, Robert? I tried allulose with the understanding it could reduce glucose levels. The result was higher base levels and spikes that I had ever seen, and it reversed when I stopped the allulose. Did allulose increase insulin resistance, or did it disrupt the production of insulin?
No, it doesn't disrupt the production of insulin. It increases insulin resistance. So what it does is it tells your body that there's sugar there and there's no sugar there because you can't digest and absorb the allulose. So you put out what's called glucagon to make more sugar. So your body's actually making the sugar, and you're more resistant, and your body's making more sugar.
All right. Let me see here. Robert said, I have just recently subscribed last week. How many days do I have to fast using the 610 system to accomplish an initial carb detox?
Okay, wow, that's a big question because the actual carb detox is phase one, and phase one means you're avoiding carbohydrates. You're eating 20 grams or less of carbohydrates. So that's the carb detox. And so to complete a carb detox, what that means is your fasting blood glucose is going to run between 70 and 90, or between 4 and 5 if you're in Canada. That's the carb detox. So the other part of intermittent fasting is wonderful, and that can be part of it, definitely. And it's really useful because it helps you burn up carbohydrates as well during the time that you're not eating. Of course, then your insulin drops down. You're able to use fat for energy. You're able to take the glycogen out of your body. So that the period of time that you have an empty stomach is a great part of that.
All right. Tom says, I'm still taking metformin, 500 milligrams twice a day, one with breakfast and one with dinner. Does it matter if I take regular or extended release? And how does the extended release affect the blood sugar? Can I take both pills at the same time if I only eat one meal that day? So does that mean you have both? You have both the extended release and the regular?
Yeah. You wouldn't need to take both of them. It can be an either or. Usually, the extended release comes in 1,000 milligrams, but okay. So it depends on how many milligrams you have, and the actual extended release. The way it works is they put the medicine, the metformin, into little capsules, microcapsules that are inside that dissolve at different rates in your stomach and intestines. And so some of it is released right away, and then a little later, a little more is released, and a little later, a little more. So it's kind of gradually being released throughout the day, um, and that's the way it works. And it generally works just fine. Some people need the long acting, the extended release, because the immediate release causes um, stomach problems. They get intestinal gastroparesis, for example. They get nausea, and they get stomach problems from the immediate release. So they put the extended release so that it's released a little bit at a time and doesn't cause those intestinal problems.
Okay. Good questions, guys. We got a few people hopping on camera. I just want to show everyone here. Look at all those beautiful faces. Hello, Karen and Steve, Juliana. Hello. It's good to see you guys. I had a question come through here on Facebook that I wanted to go ahead and ask. So Linda says, I'm on Cinachroma, lean apple cider vinegar, healthy heart, and berberine. My blood pressure is running high. Do these supplements cause it to elevate?
Lean ACV won't, berberine doesn't. No, it shouldn't. Uh, did the blood pressure go up after taking the medications? I mean, was that a temporal relationship there? That my blood pressure was normal. I took the supplements, and now my blood pressure is higher. Um, if there is a temporal relationship, then the next step is to go off them and see if it comes down.
Right. Anonymous says, Cinachroma says 1 per day. I'm hearing 3 times per day. I have been using it for 1 month, 1 time per day. Should I take it 3 times a day?
No, you generally don't need it 3 times a day. It's formulated for once a day. The high dose is twice a day. So if you take 1 in the morning, 1 at night for a higher dose, what does that give you more of? Well, vitamin D, you're getting 5,000 units a day, which gets you on usually around the low side of normal for the levels in your blood. And if you take 2 a day, you're getting 10,000 units a day, and that gets you generally on the higher side of normal in your blood level. So it's usually between 1 or 2 a day, depending. And some people find that 2 a day seems to allow them to burn fat more easily and to improve their insulin sensitivity.
Okay, let's see here. I think Juliana maybe asked this question. Does Metamucil help to bring down your sugar?
Um, you got to be careful with that, because there's Metamucil that has like more sugar than fiber in it. It's like so the flavored Metamucils are really a lot of sugar. So in that case, I would say no. But if you're looking at fiber generally, yes, fiber lowers your blood sugar. And the way that works is it slows the absorption. So if you have a really high fiber meal and you have a certain, like, let's say you have 20 grams of sugar in a high fiber meal, it will gradually be absorbed over time, and so your blood sugar doesn't spike. Whereas if you were to take 20 grams of sugar without any fiber, you would get this sudden release, a spike of sugar in your blood. So that's how fiber works primarily.
And we do have a really good fiber option in fiber greens. The only, I guess, thing that we need to mention about that is that it does have a sweet taste to it, stevia, which Dr. Saunders doesn't recommend if you're using it on phase 1.
No. And so we went to our supplier, and we said, okay, we need a taste-free fiber greens. We need fiber greens without any flavorings in it, no sweeteners. And they're like, oh, we think we could do that. So they're going to put together a formula for us to have a flavor-free fiber greens that everybody can have.
Years ago, I used to drink fiber psyllium husks and like different things when I was doing different cleanses. I mean, that tasted horrible, but I still did it. So find a good option for fiber, I would think. That's awesome, though. I'm excited to hear that. That's good to know. Okay, let's keep going here. Good questions again, you guys. Robin says, I finally had to break down with a slice of apple pie and a couple pieces of chocolate candy at our condo social meeting. I took my blood sugar fasting reading this morning and it was not as high as I thought it would be. 117. Thought it would have been higher. My average is still around 110. But why was it not higher?
That's a complex question, and I don't know enough about your metabolism to be able to say. But in a general sense of why would something like that happen? Well, the bottom line is because your insulin was you had enough insulin and you had enough space in your cells to bring glucose into your cells to lower the blood sugar so that the blood glucose was able to come down to normal. So you have enough insulin sensitivity at least to do that.
I like this note also from Robin. They also had cod and vegetables for dinner. So maybe that affected it. Who knows?
Could be. I don't know.
One thing I want to mention, guys, is that Dr. Saunders is not your doctor. And so anything that we talk about here today, we do recommend that you discuss with your primary health provider. Little disclaimer that I probably should have mentioned earlier, but here we go. Paul says, how can we know the condition of our B cells that make insulin?
See, okay, the islet cells, the beta cells that make insulin in the pancreas. How do you know? Well, the best way to know is to do those 4 tests, do the glucose, hemoglobin A1C, C-peptide, and insulin levels. And if you do those 4 tests and your C-peptide insulin is high and your glucose is high, then you have a lot of insulin resistance and your beta cells are pumping out insulin like crazy. So that's the best way I have of knowing. And you know what? If you do that and your glucose is really high, hemoglobin A1C is high, but the insulin and C-peptide are really low, that indicates that your beta cells are not functioning. And in which case, then you have to find out why. Why? Because we even, you're told that if you have type 1 diabetes, you can't reverse it. But we've done it. So,
Jim says, I've watched several videos lately where the presenter is talking about many zombie cells around a diabetic's pancreas, where these cells create a sticky protein goo around the pancreas to prevent the insulin from getting out. What is really going on here? Is there really such a thing recognized by conventional pathologists as zombie cells?
No, well, not specifically the zombie cells. That's a funny way of putting it. They're called senescent cells, and the pathologists will look at them. And yes, there are senescent cells around, and what they are is just non-functioning cells, and they don't make a sticky goo. They're not making the slime to slime your pancreas so the insulin can't get out. But there are cells that are non-functional cells that are sitting around all over your body. And so your next question is, what do you do about that? What do you do about these zombie cells, right? How do you get rid of them? And the best way by far is fasting. Fasting, number one, it wakes up the cells that can be woken up and replaces them often. So you have what are called stem cells in every tissue of your body. Everywhere in your body, you have stem cells. And when you're fasting, those stem cells wake up and they start going, okay, we got to start repairing things. And then your immune system goes around and starts taking out the dead cells. So these aren't the zombie cells that are still awake, that are non-functional awake. These are actual cells that are dead or cancer cells, all the dead proteins, and the cells, literally the immune system goes around and eats them and digests them and spits out the amino acids after they're digested. And then you can use those amino acids to make proteins for your body so your body can keep functioning while you're fasting. Yes, those cells are there, those zombie cells, they do exist. And they do slow down the pancreatic function to some extent. But they can be woken up, and the best way is fasting. That's an interesting question, huh? You guys, people never talk about zombie cells.
There was another question that came in about it also. So 2 separate people asked about zombie cells on this.
Yeah. They must have seen the same video. Some guys probably out there, I don't know who it is, but some guys probably out there going, they always try to scare you, right? Everybody's really into fear these days. So they got to scare you about the world's coming to an end one way or another, and you're going to die if you don't do this. And you're going to become a zombie if you don't do this. Take my supplements, and then you won't. All that. I've seen that so much.
Okay, so we're going to follow up here to Steve's question, and Steve's joining us on video today. So Steven said they'd given him insulin, and he responded poorly to it. He said he's gone through metformin, glipizide, Jardiance, Trulicity, Ozempic, Mounjaro, and reacted all in a bad way, and that's why he was put on insulin and then had the bad reactions to it.
Well, that's really interesting, because most of those medications causes increase in insulin, and then you take insulin, you have increase. So everything that increases your insulin, you have a bad reaction to it. You might be having a hypoglycemic reaction from insulin. So do those tests. You want to know what those tests are to see your insulin resistance index and be able to see if your pancreas is over functioning and you're just pumping out way too much.
I did post those on Facebook, you guys, and I'm going to post those in the chat as well. Again, hemoglobin A1C, glucose level, insulin level, and C-peptide. I'll post that in the chat. You can just copy it and paste it wherever you need to, or just write it down. Okay, good questions. Here we go. Lots more to get through. Joby says, will eating too many kinds of nuts affect your blood sugar?
Yes. Okay, 2 things. Nuts are generally okay, but you have to be careful. So some nuts are high in carbs and some nuts are higher in fat. So something like a walnut is pretty high in fat, but pretty low in carbs. Macadamia nut are pretty high in fat and pretty relatively low in carbs. Other nuts like cashews are pretty high in carbs and kind of low in fat, just relative amounts. But here you have the only things in nature that have both of them together, where you have both a fat and a carb. And remember, we talked about that. The fat makes you insulin resistant. The carb gets absorbed as a glucose. So the carb is raising your glucose, and the fat is preventing your insulin from working. So yes, it can raise your blood sugar quite a bit. So some of them more than others. And so some people have told me that almonds, which are pretty low in carbs, but they do have fat in them, and they're okay on a ketogenic diet. But I've had people tell me that their blood sugar goes up pretty high when they have almonds. I think they were eating almond tortillas or something like that, made with almond flour. And I'm like, yeah, you can still do that.
Okay, question here from April. April from Dubai. You know what? I was just there 2 years ago this month, I think. Oh, what a good trip. We actually had a team. Our Barton team went to a conference and did some sightseeing and stuff. That was great. But April says, when I start consuming Synachroma and turmeric, should I stop all of my meds? She says Glyca, Janumet for SIGA, Atacor for cholesterol, Olmetec, Olmestartan for blood pressure.
My goodness. Okay. Dang.
Oops.
Okay. So one of the things that we can't say is that you should stop your medications. But we can say you should at least talk to your doctor about which medication can I go off first, and then go through a carefully guided program to gradually get off your medications. I've had people just stop their medication. I'm sick of this. I'm not taking them anymore. But there's nothing about the synochroma, turmeric, or berberine, or any of the other supplements that you're taking that are going to preclude you from taking those medications. Go by your blood glucose. If your glucose is normal and you don't need one of those medications, then go off it. And then it's still normal, then go off the next one. And you just may need to work with whoever prescribed those for you, and discover which one's the best one to go off first, and do it on a gradual basis.
All right. Sorry about that screen, guys. Our friend Gary shared something. So, okay, let's see here. Right. Robin says, what causes the bloating?
What causes the bloating? What a bloating? Yeah. Okay.
Specific.
There are things to cause bloating, like gastroparesis, and you can have like high blood sugar. People with high blood glucose can get gastroparesis, and what that means is the stomach just stops working, and so you feel bloated. Other people get bloated because their diaphragm contracts. So the diaphragm is like this muscle that when it contracts, it pulls the lungs down, and so it expands the lungs, but at the same time it pushes everything in the abdomen out, so you'll feel bloated. So sometimes it's a contraction of the diaphragm. Sometimes it's actual gas being made. Some people make gas in their intestines and get bloated from that. Some people have gastroparesis, or if there's any plugging, like any constriction of the intestines, or a intestinal intussusception is called, or something wrong in the intestines where the things aren't moving through, then you'll feel bloated. So there's a lot of different reasons why you could feel bloated.
All right, good note here from Rosalind. Dr. Saunders, I'm learning that this is really a mental challenge. I bought some vegetables, real vegetables like beets, carrots, etc., called Terra chips, but it seems to raise my blood sugar. They are from a health food store. Can you explain why they seem to affect me so much? I'm just trying to understand why they're bad for me. I've had those chips. I know exactly what they are. They are very good.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the problem. All of these processed foods, they're over processed. They have some fiber in them, like potato chips do too, but they're still mixing carbs and fat. And that mixture of carbs and fat is just what we were talking about with the nuts. The fat makes you insulin resistant. The carb makes your blood sugar go up. And so, yeah, they're going to raise your blood sugar. So avoiding any kinds of chips and avoiding any kinds of mixtures of carbs and fat, anything that's fried, or even like they'll get you with the baked thing, right? These are baked chips, but they don't tell you that they mix them in oil and then they put them in an oven and bake them. So yeah, they're not deep fried, but they still have fat and carb. So, look on a label and see, make sure they don't have fat and carb together.
Joby wants to know, what do you think about Farxiga for blood sugar?
It's okay. It's not really a good way of lowering your blood sugar, and it has some side effects. It causes more glucose or sugar to go out in the urine, and so it can cause bladder problems, infections. There's a relationship of it with something called Fournier's gangrene, which is an infection in the perineal area, around the bladder, that can be really bad. It's rare. It's really rare, but still, You know what? It's so much better just to do phase one.
Yes. All right. Kathy says, we've been losing weight and having some success with blood sugar. Our doctor says that he doesn't want us to lose too much more weight, but we haven't met our blood sugar goals yet. We are senior citizens. I'm pre-diabetic and husband is type 2. He is on meds and hoping doctor will take him off metformin soon. Encouragement, what now?
Okay, so here you have a situation of someone who doesn't want to lose weight. They're at that ideal body weight, and they still have an issue with insulin resistance. You can be normal weight and still be insulin resistant. That's an issue. So don't think that you have to be obese or overweight to be insulin resistant. It's just simply having too much, producing too much insulin. So there are things you can do to maintain your weight and decrease your insulin resistance or improve insulin sensitivity. The best way to do that is move to 2 meals a day. So instead of eating like 3 or 4 meals a day, or some people have snacks in between and they still stay under their 20 gram carbohydrate, the frequent meals will cause insulin to rise each time. And so, that produces insulin resistance. So the simple thing to do is to just move to 2 meals a day, 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. And that gives you a longer period of time to have an empty stomach so that your insulin level goes down. And that's what you're trying to do. The idea is not necessarily to lose weight. Our program is not a weight loss program. It's an insulin resistance program. And so if you don't want to lose weight, then just move it to 2 meals a day.
All right. Robin said, last night in the news, there was a new study that intermittent fasting may be related to heart disease. Have you heard that?
Yeah, very interesting. So the news is propaganda. So you have to understand why the news is put there. It is very, very important for our economy to have a lot of sick people. It is like so important. This is too big to fail. You think, like they said that when Chrysler Corporation was going under, they said no, too big to fail, and so they used taxpayer money to bail out a corporation. And they said that's because we can't let it fail because our economy depends on that corporation working. So the same kind of thing with the healthcare system. The healthcare system is $1 trillion business. This is not a small thing. This is really huge. So if everybody were to do intermittent fasting, the healthcare system would completely collapse and crumble. So the news has to put stuff on there to frighten people. Don't do this because it causes cancer, it causes heart disease, and that's what it is. It's propaganda.
All right. Jim says a popular MD who is struggling in the ketogenic diet club goes to extremes to become mildly ketotic.
Ketotic, yeah.
Okay, I haven't heard that word, but that makes sense. All right. I don't understand perfectly how this works, but I believe she uses MCT triglycerides to provide energy for her body as she shifts from a glucose metabolism to a ketone-based metabolism. Can you give us your explanation of this process?
Okay, so there are 3 different things that you can use for energy. One is fat, and another one is protein, and another one is glucose, carbohydrate, right? Sugar. So if you have a primarily sugar burning metabolism, what you really want is a primarily fat burning metabolism. And that is the ideal thing to be. Why? You have more energy. You make less oxygen free radicals, less inflammation. You don't get arthritis. A fat burning metabolism is a good idea. And a normal human being should be burning 60% of all their calories, 60% of all their energy in their body should be from fat and 40% from glucose. And protein is a minor portion of that. So the process of going from one to the other is the same thing. That's phase one. It's the same thing. So what about these ketones? What is that? Well, that's part of the process of when you're burning fat for energy. Fat, one of the byproducts of burning fat is ketones, beta hydroxybutyric acid, among others. And those can go through the blood-brain barrier, get into the brain, and they can be used by even the brain. Not everywhere in the brain, but most areas can use these ketone bodies for energy. So it's like you get double your energy out of the fat than you do out of the carbs. And that's why you're producing less oxygen-free radicals, making less inflammation, and you're getting more energy from burning fat than you are from burning carbs. So that going from carbs to fat is a great idea. Adding in MCT oil or coconut oil, that's something you can do. That's okay. But it does not take the place of limiting those carbohydrates to a very small amount, like 20 grams or less, because you will still choose the carbs over the fat if you've gone to a fat burning metabolism, if you have insulin resistance. So there isn't anything magical about the MCT oil either. Yeah, it goes into the liver makes it into uses it and makes ketones out of it, so your ketone levels go up, and that's great for some people. Excuse me. People who have metabolic dementia, they get ketone bodies, and all of a sudden their brain works. Why? Because those ketone bodies cross the blood-brain barrier, go right into the brain, and allow the brain to have energy that it didn't have before. So that's why the ketone bodies can work. They're a little better, but you know what? Just make it simple. Just make it simple. Do phase one of the program. It does the same thing. It's bringing you into fat burning metabolism, 60% fat, 40% carbs, and then you're going to make those ketone bodies, and all that's going to happen anyway. You don't have to add any special oils or magical stuff.
All right. Final question. Paul says, I've been in phase one for 2 months and I've gotten my blood sugar down to 100 and dropped 20 pounds, but I'm ungodly constipated. What can I do?
Okay. You know what? The best thing for constipation by far is fiber. So if you can add fiber without adding sugar, fiber greens, right, without any flavor, without adding any sweeteners or anything like that. If you can go into the free foods that you can eat all you want of the celery and lettuce and spinach and broccoli and cauliflower, all of those things are free foods, and they're all fiber-rich foods. And add more of those into your diet and take out more of the proteins and fats, then that would go a long way toward the constipation issue.
All right. All right. That's it for today. Thank you so much, Dr. Saunders. We appreciate you. This was great.
You're welcome.
See you tomorrow. Got a Healthy Heart webinar tomorrow. So if you haven't joined that, be sure to do that. It's really good. Same type of format. Cheryl from our team joins us as well. She works with our customers. She runs the customer support team, and then she also oversees our home cures that work. We call it a magazine, but it's all mostly digital now. So she joins with Dr. Saunders. We talk about how to keep your heart healthy. And there's a lot of people who are, wanting to reverse type 2 and have a healthy heart. And so we do marry those and talk about what can we do for both. And so we encourage you to join that. You can find the registration information for that at bartonwebinar.com. It's a free webinar, just like this. And you get to ask Dr. Saunders questions. So it's great. I hope to see you guys all back. next week, if not tomorrow, but we so appreciate having you here and thank you for all of your great questions. I want to remind you that you can use code webinar25. It's one word to save 25% on anything that you find at Barton Webinar or Barton Nutrition. So if you're really interested in maybe the diabetes solution kit, you can get this hard copy version like this, or you can get a digital version. And so get it for 25% off. Save yourself some money. It's already under $20 for the digital version anyway, but hey, look at Steve. He's got his. Awesome. Yeah, I like to have the hard copy. I like to put notes and stuff like that in it, but it's up to you. So thank you guys for being on. Thank you for showing all your beautiful faces. That was fun, and it's fun to get to see you guys. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.